All right, what's up, fam? Shout out to all the people around the world doing their thing. Shout out to all the fans out there in the internet. Um, we're live here with our now third Reformation review. If we keep pace, we should be finished our Reformation review by the end of this week, Thursday. So today we're taking a look. We're picking up for where we left off on Thursday, and we're talking about the War of the Three Henrys and change for France. So, War of Three Henrys led to significant change for France by the ascension of Henry the Fifth. Sorry. The war culminated in the ascension of Henry V to the French throne. Henry's victory marked the end of the wars of religion and the beginning of a period of resolve and religious tolerance. So, why is this significant? Why is the War of the Three Henrys significant? It marks the end or the culmination of the wars of religion. Okay. It also involves what's called the Edict of Nantes, which is in 1598. Henry V issued the Edict of Nantes granting religious freedom and political rights to the Huguenots. And this edict aimed to bring about religious freedom and reconciliation and stabilization for the French monarchy. So it is an attempt basically to say, hey, we've had a period of chaos, we've had a period of instability and infighting, and so we're trying to bring everybody together and smooth things over. And in that attempt, we're going to institute kind of a religious acceptance. Okay. That's question 30 on page 16. Is it 16? 13. Sorry, 13. 15. 15. I'm getting bad information. All right, next number next. Henry V's realization and peace compromise. Okay, Henry realized that, as many great leaders do, when they come to power in a period of instability, is what they realize is that compromise leads to, and capitulation often leads to peace. It's a real word. It's a real word. Google it. Capitulation. Yeah, Google that. Capitulation. It's almost like giving in. It's almost like giving in a sense. Like it's okay. So Henry V is the king, right? He comes to power. It's a period of instability, of fighting over religious dominance. Different people want to have different religions. So what does he do? He capitulates. Okay, you can be any religion you want. I'm still in charge. I'm still technically winning because I'm giving you permission, but I'm basically giving you what you want. hmm But a compromise is usually I get a little bit of what I want, you get a little bit of you want. Capitulation's more like I'm kind of giving you everything you want in a sense. I don't really get much out of it. What I get is like the end of the fighting and the drama. Okay. So what people in situations such as Henry realize is when you take a position of compromise, you can kind of quell the chaos and get back to stability. It's hard to be in charge and to increase your power and wealth if you're busy constantly fighting, especially amongst yourselves, or you're just in a period of instability. Um, and so, again, we're getting the Edict of Nantes, political reconciliation. Okay. Henry's pushing policies of political reconciliation by appointing ministers from both the Catholic and Protestant churches, promoting a sense of unity and compromise. So again, we've been fighting all of this. We're constantly fighting between Catholics and Protestants. So he takes over. He's like, listen, you could be either or, And not only that, but to show that I'm serious about this and to kind of get everybody back on board, I'm going to appoint people from both groups and kind of have a unified uh, government or bureaucracy. It creates economic stabilization. All right. That's his focus. Okay. It's hard to stay in power when your economy is in the crapper. Okay. And the more your economy fails, now you got the headset on like how you. Yeah, but the difference, Nick, is I don't have the headset on like shout out to the Nick in the chat. Um it's hard to be in power and remain in power when your economy is collapsing, right? And it's not working. So it's a lot easier to increase your foothold and amass more power when the people are kind of not starving and or not fighting amongst each other. So that's part of his plan here, right? Is this kind of compromise, this religious tolerance, so that he can focus on stabilizing the economy, undoing the damage that has been done as a result of the political infighting over religion. Military skill and diplomacy. He's known for his military skill and diplomatic acumen, played a critical role in negotiating peace treaties and securing internal stability for England. And his approach aimed to ensure that neither Catholics nor Huguenots felt marginalized, fostering a sense of national unity and stability. Okay, so again, not one side winning over the other, uh, rather, an England comes first policy, if you will. Henry's goal is to make England great again. France, what am I saying? England? It's a long day, Wolfgang. Shout out to Wolfgang for correcting me. All right. He wants to make France great again. I've been saying England this whole time. I'm sorry. We're talking about France all day. And then I come here and we're doing this review and I mess it up. Okay, next one. Charles V's realization and rectification of domain size. Charles V realized that the size of his domain was challenging to govern efficiently. To rectify this, okay, he abdicated the throne, dividing his vast empire between his son Philip II of Spain and his brother Ferdinand I, who became the Holy Roman Emperor. This division aimed to make the governance more manageable. Philip II's inheritance. He inherited Spanish territories, including Spain, the Netherlands, and parts of Italy, while Ferdinand the First inherited the Holy Roman Empire. Um, Recognition of regional authority. The division reflected a recognition of the challenges posed by the vastness. Yeah, I mean, basically, again, this is an interesting moment because Charles IV has a realization that not many rulers throughout history ever get to, because their ego gets in the way. And that is that, particularly even in modern eras, it's very difficult to the more land you're trying to reign over or control, and the more people, the more difficult it is. Right. Again, that's true today as it was then. But factor in the fact that there is no communication technology at this time. Right. Information travels as fast as human beings do at this time. So imagine trying to control and reign over uh, a insurmountable amount of land and people in an era when like someone has to walk up to you and tell you what's going on. Okay, so by splitting the kingdoms up into different parts, what he's doing is making it manageable, right? Because ultimately, if you don't do that, and he passes on the kingdom as is to his next successor. He knows that at some point something's going to happen, and you could go from splitting it to losing a significant amount of it, or losing all of it, right? If it just devolves into chaos. The other challenges too is like it's one thing to preside over a large empire and a lot of people when you're not the sole arbiter of authority. If you're a king and you're the end all be all. You're one guy or gal for a massive empire and a ton of people. That's extremely difficult. I mean, think about that. Like every problem, you know, you're the folk that has to the person that has to settle it. It's the end of the day. I've been talking all day. So mistakes will be made, Wolfgang. I don't need your judgment. Okay. I can feel your eyes judging me. 33, Philip II's challenge. You don't, guys, you don't need to write all of this. It's fine. Philip's. Let's see if this makes sense. Is that better? Oh, too much. 33. It's Philip, right? Philip II's. What is it? Challenge to Elizabeth I. Spanish Armada. Spanish Armada is one of those moments in history where it's the greatest military achievement in the history of human existence up to that point. The Spanish Armada is uh, Spain builds the biggest navy the world has ever seen up until that point. Uh, they do so not only just in the number of ships that they have, but in the style of ship that they build. So Spain is going to build or develop these very large, what are called ships of the line. That's the term for warships of this era, and they're basically these floating fortresses full of cannons, right? And they're building these massive warships, and not only is the ship itself massive and loaded to the gills with armaments, but they're going to build a historic amount of these vessels, and that enables them to just absolutely dominate the seas, right? Because nobody wants any smoke. Um, So Philip II is challenging Elizabeth I. Why? We have a religious conflict, right? The different religions play different play a part in the division between the two empires, right? Elizabeth I is Protestant. Philip views Elizabeth's rule as a challenge to Catholicism and seeks to restore Catholic influence in England. There's obviously a political rivalry that dates back. And again, anytime that up until kind of the modern era, anytime that we have a conflict post exploration up to, I would say, probably like maybe World War One, a lot of these conflicts that we have between these different countries, uh, at some level, it's because of the last one, right? Like the countries that don't like each other, it's just this forever back and forth fighting. Excuse me, this is probably the president of the United States calling me to tell me how great I am. I don't know how to. It's my Scott. Wrong room. He moved. I don't know. Good luck. Spoiler alert: that was not the president. Blah, 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 blah. And then we have support for the Dutch revolt. Elizabeth I supported the Dutch revolt against Spain. So support my enemies, bruh, makes you my enemy. Okay, background. Were you done? There was a second question. Okay. It's sent. So Philip sends it to invade England, and it's defeated by the English Navy in 1588. So, and that's a huge win for Elizabeth. The reason why Elizabeth is able to defeat Spain's insane historic navy, two reasons. And this, again, this is why studying history is so interesting, because it consistently repeats itself time and time again. and it's fascinating. Okay, there's two reasons for England's ability to defend itself from Spanish invasion, and going up against the Spanish Armada, which again is the biggest navy the world has ever seen by that point. Number one, Elizabeth just motivates the hell out of all of England, right? She fires everybody up. She has the momentum. They're fighting for their homes, they're fighting for their queen. She makes a connection with her people that is rare of a monarch of that era, right? She inspires people to fight for her. And part of the way that she does that is she talks about in the writings that she's going to put out to the people, like, I'm ready to go. I'll get on a ship. I'll go out there. And the people are like, what? Let's go. So there's she fires people up, she motivates them. I'm trying to think of the term for that. It's like the ancillary factors in any military conflict. There's a term for it. It'll come to me. But so they have that kind of that that intangible edge. The other reason, again, this is where, again, it's a common theme in history. When you have the biggest navy, right, or the biggest army, a lot of times your weakness is that you're slow. So if you have the big numbers and you're building these big hulking ships, right, or these big hulking military units, yeah, they're extremely dominant when you deploy them, but your weakness is they move very slow and they can be easily be outmaneuvered, right? And again, it's true for navies, naval ships, armies, military units on the battlefield, right? Depending on where you are in history, sometimes the better move, right, is to be the more agile and maneuverable force, right? And very simply, you could be the strongest man in the world. You could be a big, jacked diesel dude, right? Fighting a smaller person, and yeah, if you land a punch, it's lights out. But if you can't hit them because they're moving too quick, it don't matter how hard you hit, right? It's David and Goliath, baby. Story as old as people, right? So England's navy is smaller. Their ships are smaller, but they're faster and they're more maneuverable, and they're able to outmaneuver the Spanish ships of the line. And why that's so important in naval warfare, not just at this time, but even today, is naval warfare at this time not that dissimilar to combat on the actual battlefield. It's a lot of like lining up and shooting each other. So if you have a Spanish ship and it's enormous and it's got tons of guns, yeah, when they fire, if you're going to stand right there and let me shoot you, and I have the bigger ship that takes more hits and it's got more guns, I'm going to crush you. But if every time I fire my cannons on my ship, I miss you because you can move your ship out of the way, and then you can fire your guns and hit mine, I'm ineffective. I'm combat ineffective. And so that's what gives a lot of the edge to the English Navy and allows them to beat the world's greatest Navy up to that time. Basically, when you're on top in the military in history, the greatest militaries of the world innovate, right? And use advanced technology. And this is true. Spanish Armada, British Navy, German military under Hitler. But when you get to the top, you get complacent. And eventually, Napoleon, and eventually you get beat because everybody at the bottom that you're beating up on spends all that time figuring out where the weaknesses are. It's also the same reason why Jalen Hurts is not the quarterback this season that he was last season. Because everybody we beat up on spent all the offseason analyzing, right, his weaknesses. Just saying. Yeah, that's so stupid. We don't like it. We can't stop it. So let's change the rules. It's too good. Number 34, background leading to the 30 Years' War. Okay. What leads to the start of the 30 Years' War? We have religious tension. Again, a lot of the conflicts of this era it's the Reformation. So it's a lot of its religion gets traced back to um, an underlying current of tension due to religious differences, right? Catholics and Protestants. Okay, a lot of it stems from the Peace of Augsburg in 1555, which granted rulers the right to choose the religion of their realms, but excluded Calvinism. So we can pick whatever we want, but we're not going to pick Calvinism. Political power struggles. The war involves struggles for political power and control over territories within the Holy Roman Empire and various states vying for influence. Internal involvement. Okay. Foreign powers like Spain, France, and the Dutch Republic becoming involved and transforming what starts out as kind of a um, local central or contained conflict into a broader, more global conflict, we'll say, or regional. Social and economic disruptors. The war brought significant social and economic disruptions, including widespread destruction, famine, and population decline, as most large-scale military conflicts tend to do. Peace of Westphalia. This is a big one. What is it? 1648 drastically changed the direction of Europe by territorial changes. Treaties that made up the Peace of Westphalia resulted in significant territorial changes, with some regions gaining independence and others changing hands. Balance of power. Treaties contributed to the establishment of the balance of power, shaping the political landscape for centuries to come. Potential problems. While the Peace of Westphalia brought an end to the 30 Years' War, potential problems including lingering religious tensions, territorial disputes, and the seeds of future conflicts. It doesn't like let me go with small. It's like one or the other. It's an emergency folder. Number next. So next one. I think it's actually because I opened it in a different format than I wrote it. I think it's just like formatting. Also, you're a hater, so player hating degree. Liana definitely has a PhD. She hates. Not actually. That you're very judgmental. You're just making comments about my spelling ability. Okay. Again, you have no evidence to support that claim. I believe it's a formatting issue. Okay, well, that's true. It's also true. Yeah. Next one. Why did the church really consider a Catholic Reformation? To address internal corruption and moral decline, respond to the challenges posed by Protestant Reformation, strengthen Catholic doctrine and clergy discipline. Here's the reality, folks. Why does the church eventually decide to reform? Because they have to, because they're losing. They're losing influence, they're losing money, they're losing power. Very simply, if you can't beat them, join them. And it's their attempt, right? And it's any historical example of the establishment being forced to change, right? First, they're going to try and suppress, then they're going to try and compromise or deal, and when that doesn't work, they give in, right? In a sense, because you can either, at this point, reform if you're the Catholic Church, and maybe at some point down the line increase your foothold to where you were, or at least maintain where you are and not lose everything, right? It's their attempt to stay relevant, to stay somewhat in power. What was the impact of the Reformation on? What's the question? The opinion question, Wolfgang. What's the 37? So I said the Reformation, and why do you think? Well, I mean, don't need to think. Okay, but why would you? That's a good example of a potential essay question. Why? What would be the easiest way to argue that it's the Reformation and not, for example, the Renaissance? In order for the Renaissance to affect your daily life as a normal person, what would you have to be? And I shouldn't say normal, or a person living in Italy. Well, I spoiled it. Yeah. You'd have to be living in a place where the Reformation, Renaissance is happening. And then you got to live in a place where it's really, hot, right? So if you're not living in Venice or Florence and you're not in the city, the impact or the gravity of that period diminishes greatly the further you get from an urban environment. Okay. So that's number one. Number two, even if you're in, say, Venice, Italy, or Florence at the peak of the Renaissance, what is it really doing to your everyday life if you're just the average Joe? Nothing. I mean, maybe on your way to the plaza in the center of town, you pass some really nice art. That's about it. Right. In order for you to have a big impact on your life from the Renaissance, you kind of had to be wealthy. You had to be kind of a wealthy person in Renaissance Italy or, Germany, what have you. All right, that's it for today, kids. See you tomorrow, chat.